Hey.
Hello, world. The Thursday Exchange, episode 15, April 8th, 2021. 15 of these guys.
A, how weird is it that it's 2021 and it's already April, and B, 15 episodes already? That's pretty awesome.
We have an awesome show for you guys tonight, okay? We have the wonderful Wendy Stuart Kaplan on tonight, woman of many talents. You know, we are going to be focusing heavily on debt across America and how it affects us all. And
gun control issues.
Many different issues under there. But before we get into those hot topics and those really tough, challenging ones, did you know today is Zoo Lovers Day? It's also Buddha Day.
Buddha Day?
Yep. Dog Fighting Awareness Day or Draw a Bird Day.
When you say Buddha Day, like, what do you mean? Like a birthday?
No, it's Buddha, like celebrating Buddha. It's Buddha Day. Cool. See, I am out of all those, like, there's
Buddha is better.
Dog fighting awareness is extremely important to me. I'm extremely against that. If anyone watching this or knows somebody that's involved in dog fighting rings,
you may beat them to death with a bat.
You know, I feel like you should be able to get beat up. You know, that's the way that should work. You know, you're putting a dog in a dangerous circumstance. That is a bad thing. I'm against that.
I think you should spread peanut butter on yourself and let the dog go to town.
Exactly. Zoo Lovers Day. I'm a big child in the zoo. What's that? What's that?
I love zoos, don't get me wrong, but there's some of them are run better than others. Let's just put it that way.
That's a conversation itself. Let me tell you this. I'm not going to name the zoo. I'm not going to burn them. I don't know what it is. But there was a zoo I went to in PA, and it was really weird because it was a zoo exhibit. You know, the lions were in cages that were kind of small, and the other large animals were also small confines. But not only were they a zoo, but on the other side of it, it was like a gaming exhibit. So you saw like skins on the wall, guns,
like a game hunting kind of
exhibit. Game hunting, yeah. And it was weird to me to see, like, you know, heads of like hundreds of animals.
That probably
all the furs.
I think I know which place you're talking about. It's out
I'm not going to name the name, but to me that bothered me very. Like, I was sitting there eating a hot dog at the zoo, and I was like, you know, people that go to zoo are typically they're animal lovers,
right?
Yes. People that go to exhibits to the zoo, they typically like animals. So the last thing I want to see is like a bear stuffed, or like its head on the wall, or how it was killed, or, you know, trapped. Like, because that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to see it alive and well, and, you know, rehabilitated.
Smell, touch.
I always thought that like zoos were like rehabilitation places for animals that couldn't survive in the wild. And this topic's really interesting because our guest tonight, Wendy Stuart, she has a lot of experience with animal activism, and I can't wait for her to tell you. She has some amazing stories.
I'm excited.
I'm really excited. I don't want to give it all away, but I'm really excited to get to that. But as we do typically, we get into the interesting segment of wild news stories.
Well, I do have another weird one for you first.
Well, I have a lot more weird ones, but go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I didn't know we were still doing the weird ones.
We're always doing the weird ones. Life is weird.
Apparently, Legos, you know, they've always been popular and everything, but the little multicolored bricks are suddenly such a hot topic that an entire ring of thieves has developed in France that have been robbing factories, and they recently robbed a factory in Portland, Oregon of all of their Legos because at the end of the season, when they go out of style or whenever it is they stop producing them, they become collectibles. And so there's apparently a bit of a market for it.
Listen, there's a market for anything.
Lego thieves?
If I was about a few years younger, any of my cousins can probably back me up. I probably would have been a Lego thief. I love them. I used to have those model sets for like the big, like, you know, ships and boats.
Like the pirate ships and like Star Wars.
I
tried to make my own, and I was like, I don't have enough.
The little figurines. And then years later, I would like, as a person who grew up to make movies, when I was young, I used to have the little Lego creatures, the little like guys, the little, stormtroopers, and I would fight with them like, yay, yay. And years later, they actually made a Lego movie.
Yeah.
So people were
It was
in my
actually pretty
brain.
funny too.
Yeah, they were in my mind. They stole my, intellectual concepts. Maybe not, but that's what I feel.
Concept, at least.
So we all remember the movie Forrest Gump, where, Forrest ends up running across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently a Texas man, I guess he was inspired one day, and he ran from Disneyland in California to Walt Disney World in Florida, a journey about 2,761 miles.
Is he the guy who wears like the skin tight white running pants?
I don't know what he was wearing. All I can tell you is 59 years
naked.
old. He started this run back in February 2020, and he planned to complete this journey in 90 days. But, COVID happened. A lot of crazy things happened since then. So it took him 14 months, but he did it.
And it's also the freaking country.
Can you imagine, like, you know what? I always told you.
I could imagine walking it, not running it. I can't imagine running to the mall.
How many times did I tell you? I wish I had the time to just, travel the country, go places, see different things, and just like do stuff like that. Like, I would love to just like wander about. Where do you find the time? You can, but like he did it for 14 months of his life.
Yeah, not that kind of time.
14 months he was running. Okay. All I can picture is Forrest Gump like running, and they're like, "Where are you running to?" He's just like, "I'm just going." And then like one day he just stopped, and he was just like, "Well, what was it for?" I'm done. That's what I can just imagine this. But I mean, he was going to Walt Disney World, so I'm pretty sure he had it. He had an objective, So
Mickey.
He wanted to get there. Yeah. So if I could only be so athletic, I would love to do something like that.
I would probably have more luck with the ladies. I'll tell you that.
So, you people out there that like to collect stuff, or you're hoarders like I used to be. If you go back to 1986, we all remember when Super Mario Brothers came out. And it was like
I was one.
Top. Well, I know you know about Super Mario Brothers, and I know you know.
Of course, dude. I remember the movies, the whole thing.
I know you know about Sega Genesis.
Yes.
Well, a sealed copy, original, of the Super Mario Brothers sells for a record price of $660,000.
You see the
so, listen, my fiance, I get her a lot of games for the holidays and stuff, and sometimes she doesn't.
That's not one.
Sometimes she doesn't open them. So I'm thinking maybe if she doesn't open a few of these games, I just hide them on her. Maybe a few years from now, they'll be worth you maybe $100,000. You never know.
Or 20 years from now, maybe. I
20.
mean, it's a good retirement plan if it works.
You just hide a bunch of her shit and just make sure she doesn't open it.
Like,
yeah. But yeah, so very interesting stuff.
She would kill you.
But it's like one of those things that you would never expect to be so much money.
Mm-hmm.
But it is.
Well,
there's
it's like
collectors.
Like it still blows my mind how much they freaking cost sometimes. I'm like, or Pogs. You remember Pogs?
Oh my god, I love Pogs. They were big in the 90s.
Do they still sell them?
I don't know. I'm sure they're out there somewhere in a flea market.
I used to have a holographic slammer.
Wow. Well, I remember when the Pokemon cards first got big, and I had the holographic, Charizard and whatever Blastoise. And people were buying them at flea markets for hundreds of dollars for a single card. And
I remember
people would get vicious over that. And I'm thinking do people still collect Pokemon?
Yeah, they do. There's a couple of comic book and hobby stores that I've seen. They had one in the mall for a while. That one was interesting, but in Middletown. But they have one out in Port Jervis. They're actually really good. Maybe we should reach out to them as a guest too, because they do a lot of stuff in the community as well. But they have tournaments and everything. So that one's pretty cool. And then there's one over in Poughkeepsie as well, I believe, called the Dragon's Den. But yeah, they still do them. There are some diehard fans, man.
Well, listen, you never know. Years from now, somewhere in the middle of like, Stan Lee creating these comic books and a lot of other creators, they probably never expected it to blow up like it did, where people were making TV shows, movies. I mean, as long as I've been around, and even my grandparents and parents, there's been like Marvel and TV shows regarding that.
Mhm.
But like now it's so mainstream and they're everywhere. They're making games they're making movies on.
There are some diehard fans, man.
Marvel and the feedback here regarding that.
Mhm.
Like now it's so there's getting myself confused. There was a long feedback.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So like there's movies now on video games and the board games, like I don't want to say Jumanji, but there's other movies out there that are like on board games. So it's weird. Rock'em Sock'em Robots, they made a whole movie basically on that with who was it? Hugh whatever his name is. But not you. I'm pretty sure that's the guy who, created Playboy, but
yeah, I know that.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, Mortal Kombat. There's a list of them, but it's pretty cool. So another weird story this week. And this is like this is for the petty people out there. Imagine being so bitter and angry that when your employee puts in his 2-week notice and writes a resignation letter, you pay out his last paycheck in $915 in pennies covered in oil. You dump it in their driveway and you write an FU note on it.
And then set it on fire?
No, I mean, no, but
that would be pretty epic.
Pennies and oil. So you can imagine the guy having to wash each individual penny afterwards. Apparently it came out to over 91,000 pennies, which weighed close to 504 pounds. So there's a lot of pennies.
4 pounds of copper is worth more than 504 pennies. That guy's an idiot.
It's wild what people do.
People strip pipes for that crap.
And we know that. How many abandoned buildings we go into that don't look too bad, that literally look there's nothing on the walls.
Until you get to the bathroom or the kitchen, then all of a sudden the wall's missing in a long stripe. It's like, guess that was a pipe.
Oh my God, yeah. So yeah, don't be like that. Hugh Jackman. Thank you, Chaz. Hugh Jackman. Not you, Hefner, that created Playboy. Hugh Jackman, who played the Wolverine. He was in a movie, I think it was called, I forget what it was called, but yeah, what I was trying to say is the smallest little shows and stuff from our youth
are made better by dudes with claws.
Yeah, they're making movies out of them. They're making TV shows out of them, whether they're comic books, whether they're Pogs, whether they're Pokemon. They had Detective Pikachu with Ryan Reynolds playing the voice. What was that?
Do you remember Magic the Gathering?
Oh yeah, that became like a cult thing now.
It really did. And honestly, I tried getting into it because all my friends were into it. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, really, in reality, I just like the pictures on the cards. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty sweet.
So, Stefan, there's a shout out from the audience here. Was that a Pikachu impression?
Yep.
Can we hear it again? There we go. So,
hey, dude, I won tickets to go see Bill Maher live in Albany by doing the Tiffany Elmo voice on the radio.
Well, you can't just say that. You gotta.
That, and I used to screw with my niece and nephew so many times. They'd be like, huh?
You can't just say something like that without proving to us what you're talking about.
Hello.
This is definitely going to be an interesting hour. Jesus.
Don't even get me started on the Barney ones. Oh, my God.
I used to be able to do Barney. I don't know if I can do it anymore.
Try it.
Maybe next time. I don't remember.
Like an ass. Come on.
Listen, you definitely did. But I want to make sure.
Hi, kids.
Hi, kids. Barney's here to
babysit. Seizure.
Yeah. Nobody gets to see the guy underneath the costume and how ridiculous he looks.
Probably going, hey.
I mean, I actually don't want to know what he looks like because I can imagine anyone that plays those like iconic characters is kind of like weird to, I don't even want to think about that. That's crazy. All right, on to the serious topics of this week. There's some major ones. President Biden pushing his major gun control executive order. Okay.
And how many executive orders has he passed so far?
A lot. The most, I think, in history for this time, for the time he's been in office, a little over 70 days. He calls this a public health crisis. And as much as I totally understand why he wants to push this, there's a lot of errors in it. I mean, there's been more mass shootings throughout this week. It's like every week he's been in office, it seems there's more and more mass shootings.
And it's a continuing problem. Like, they define a mass shooting, I think, as 2 or 3 or more people being shot at one time, or I'm not sure the exact number, but it's so it's not just like giant mass shootings. Anyone that's like a group of people who are being involved in a shooting. However, there was a year, I think 2 years ago, where there was literally at least one mass shooting every single day in this country. And it's just continuing and getting worse. And it's like, after a certain point, like, if a kid keeps on doing something he's not supposed to do, you ground him.
I mean, if you're participating in mass shootings or even thinking you're going to me, that in itself is irredeemable. Like, is there a point, I don't want to sound like a total like psychopath, but is there a point of this person to exist any longer where he's going to hurt others? I mean, rehabilitation isn't a part of the process, and being on taxpayer money also for his entire life existence. I mean, I know I'm getting on controversial territory like we typically do here on the show, but people are very against the death penalty, but paying for the guy who shot up the movie theater a few years ago, or Sandy Hook, or all these other various places, is it really worth their life, them being alive?
Or driving cars into people. It's not like, if it was just guns, then why are people doing it in other ways as well?
Well, let's just talk about what he's actually trying to do. So Biden is asking the Justice Department to propose within a month a rule to stop ghost guns, okay, which are kits to help build and assemble firearms. That's what they really are. That don't have a serial number. So he wants to get rid of them, because right now they're illegal. You can purchase these kits, build a gun. He also reached out to the Department of Justice to propose within 60 days a rule against braces, which are for handguns, that make it more accurate for them to shoot.
Against both of them or for them?
Against them. So with both of these issues here, okay, we're talking about the kits and we're talking about the braces. These are the 2 executive orders he's looking to pass. Now, logically thinking about both of these, now everyone's going to say they got to start somewhere, right? Is that going to stop the mass shootings?
No.
It's not. I don't want to say it's not the gun, it's the person, but also these are very minor in what's happening, those 2 things. The ghost guns, has anyone in this country been killed by a ghost gun?
I'm actually looking it up right now, and
someone fact check me. Is like, has any of these mass shootings taken place with the braces?
In August 2000, in 2020, there was one guy who killed 2 people. There was a 16-year-old shot in 2019. There was another 41 shots fired in 32 seconds in a bar in Dayton, Ohio, shooting 26 people, killing 9. So people are being harmed, by these kits. So, I mean, it is a real threat. However,
it is a real thing, but statistically, if we're comparing one gun to another, and this is the same thing too in countries that have banned guns entirely. There's still violent crimes and murders, but they're just with sharp objects. It's like
I keep going back to Switzerland, where my dad's from. Like, granted, it's a small country and they're a peaceful people, maybe a little bit happy on the banking side, but that aside, they all have guns, or most of them do, because they all have to be trained in the military and then maintain their weapons, and they're not shooting people like that. So it's obviously not the guns, it's the people in this country and the way we view things.
And this is the same, I don't want to backtrack what we've done, but this is what we do. It's a long, I feel like all of our conversations they're a marathon. They're not a race. Our conversations go backwards a little bit. Last week we talked about this and the mental health of our country and our people, and what the men of this country believe they have to be: strong, stoic, emotionless. What is going on that all these mass shootings are happening?
Desperation.
And what are these other countries doing that we can improve on? Instead of going out there and saying, "Yeehaw, America," patriot. Listen, I'm the biggest patriot ever, but we have to learn what we're doing the best and what other countries are doing the best to keep their people safe. And to me, like this Biden thing, this executive order, it's just to show power, in my opinion, and it's just to show that he's getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
But these things he's getting done are.
But the thing is, on top of that, he's also putting into effect, or not into effect, but nominating a extremely. So while this one doesn't make any changes to the Second Amendment, or because I can speak English today, this one doesn't make any changes to the Second Amendment, but by putting in a anti-gun activist as the head of the ATF, that's a pretty slick move, if you ask me.
I mean, a lot of the motions that Biden has made so far, as far as president, is he's trying to make bold moves as far as who he picks for his cabinet and who he puts in charge.
They all
one
do that,
thing,
to be fair.
He's bold in the sense that he wants to be known as the most socially open president in history. Right now, we have the most diverse cabinet ever, which is a good thing. Yeah. But he also has the most diverse when it comes to controversial issues. Pretty much everybody that he has, Buttigieg, Cortez, anybody that really works behind him now, even his vice president, is probably the most controversial of their bunch. Like, he picked, like, I want to say the hard hitters, or the ones that bite. He picked the biters, which
we just had 4 years of a constant bite mark on our neck from the other guys. So it's like, it's a natural reaction.
It's the polar opposite. A lot of his cabinet is extreme. Like they said, like they're not afraid to debate. They're not afraid, they're not so quiet. So it's the press
secretary's got a sharp tongue too.
Yeah. So we're going on to the press secretary. So we're going to move on to the issue here. So there's a lot of controversy going on right now over a vaccine passport. Therefore, people believe, and a lot of people are misinformed, this is an issue that's being misinformed, that you will need, in the very near future, you will need some sort of identification, credential to go places, proving that you had the vaccine. And these things could include going to the movies, going to concerts. They could even include going to certain grocery stores, going to certain hospitals.
It's already started that way to some degree.
Well, it has, but there's a lot of misinformation. So this is coming straight from the press secretary's mouth. Jen, I don't want to butcher her name. Pisky.
I'm not even going to try.
She said, the government is not now, nor will we be supporting a system that requires Americans to carry a credential. There will be no federal vaccine database and no federal mandate requiring everyone to obtain single vaccination credentials. Now, when she says the word is federal mandate. Now, I've been saying this because, Stefan, you and I live in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the guests we have don't. So they don't understand that what happens over there, maybe down south in some, other places, like, well, maybe it's Ohio or it's Florida or Texas, they have their own state level and local governments that maybe they will.
And then there's county and village and town
and that's what I'm saying. So even though she says this is not going to ever be basically a federal mandate, we're under the reign of Cuomo and all the issues that have happened throughout the pandemic. I could see there being a mandate.
Last year, I remember when this all started, like, people were saying you can't make us wear masks, and people are still doing it, but they're like, you can't make us wear masks, and they're like, we're not going to make it into a law, we're not going to infringe on your rights, yada yada yada. Yet
They didn't really,
but all of the stores have signs now saying you may not enter by state
private
law.
private owned establishments.
Yeah.
They were able to put up their own guidelines, and that's where it becomes really tricky, because you're talking about the mask, okay? The mask mandate. Now, I might sound shocking to some viewers, but there's a lot of agencies throughout New York State now that are saying one mask isn't enough. You need to wear 2 masks. Some are saying you need to wear 2 masks and a shield if you are not vaccinated. Now, to me, that's pushing it. That's pushing it. You're basically outcasting the ones that chose not to get the vaccine. Now, people say, "Oh, you're selfish, you didn't get the vaccine," but people should have a right to what they put in their body and what their own personal beliefs are.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're telling them, if you don't get it, you're going to have to wear a helmet soon. Because maybe in another 6 months, maybe 2 masks isn't enough. Maybe it will be 3 masks. You know what I'm saying? This is where I'm at. Like, I'm not against masks in any way. I think that
me neither.
I think we should wear masks, and I think we should socially distance. But for you're telling people who got vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. But this guy needs to wear 2 and a face shield.
I mean, they already did that with the flu, to be fair. Before all this started, like, if you didn't get the flu shot, you had to wear a mask. That's mandated, and I understand that. But when you start telling people that they can't go about regular everyday activities, that's a whole different thing. Like, you're not in a nursing home taking care of people, you're living your life. And for them to say that also brings up another question. Like, why is it that a year after all this started, the trillions and trillions of dollars that we've invented from thin air to pay for everything, which, I understand, great, whatever, but there's a lot in those bills that have been passed, which I don't know because I haven't read every line of it. I don't speak legalese. I probably fall asleep. But the thing is like, I'm having a complete brain fart.
What the fuck? What happened?
I just had a complete brain fart.
Well,
on that note, wow.
Yeah, well, anyways, the point of the matter is there's a lot of misinformation about the vaccine passport. However, I think it all depends on your local and state government. I mean, it's in effect in other countries. There is, like, Israel has already instituted this sort of thing for a vaccine passport. To go into restaurants and gyms, you are required to have one. If you want to go to certain countries, you cannot go to certain countries right now without your vaccine. You have to have some identification. What was that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I remember now. Basically, I was saying the N95s, they still maintain that the N95 masks are the ones that are most effective. Yet, how many medical professionals do you see being mandated to wear them? And if they are wearing them, if they have facial hair, they don't work. If they don't fit properly, they don't work. If you can smell a powder inside of a weird alien-looking biohazard suit that they spray into there while you have the mask on, then it's not effective and it doesn't work. But with all the money that's been spent over the past year on this, how come they're not providing that to them rather than saying, here, wear 2 masks?
Because it's actually cheaper.
Exactly.
To give you the 2 crappy old masks that, like, the straps break off than giving
made by slaves in China.
1 quality mask. And God knows what the heck is in some of these masks. I don't know how many masks I put on my face. I'm like, ugh. Like, what is that? What is that made of?
Like, you're supposed to wash them each time. How many of us actually do?
I toss a lot. I mean, unless they're the fabric masks. If they're the other ones, I dispose of them. I don't.
Yeah, those ones I get rid of. But
yeah, I won't do that. So, but anyways, wear your masks, people. I'm not telling you not to. I'm just informing the public as I feel we should. It's something that you guys need to do your research on and really understand before you go all haywire. There's people out there that are like, they're totally against, the vaccine 100%, but like, maybe are they really, or just trying to be cool about it because they're still getting the
Oh no, they
vaccine?
are. They
But
are.
they're doing this fear mongering thing where they're like, oh, if you don't do this, you're not going to be able to go to the grocery store, and I don't see that happening. But I think that there's a lot of
Along those lines,
pandemonium going
yeah.
on right now.
And along those lines, though, it doesn't help that you have, unfortunately, like, it's expected that these vaccines have an effect on some people. They have a very documented course of reactions that they say could happen. Oops, sorry, hit the computer. And it doesn't help that a bunch of people just got sick and were hospitalized, I think 2 days ago at a mass vaccination site.
Well, right now is really weird. It's a really weird time in this country. We're over a year into the pandemic, and the numbers are seemingly going up. Everyone you talk to now, there's like whole families with COVID, and I think one of the main reasons behind that is people got lax. They started being like, I survived it, so they stopped wearing their mask. They stopped social distancing. Now you're talking
I've been
about whole
guilty of
families.
that.
We all have, and things are opening up, and that's another thing too. You got to remember when the pandemic first started, you had to go. Like, we're talking about living in New York now, so I don't know what you're doing down there, down South Florida, whatever. But in New York,
Couldn't even buy toilet paper.
yeah, well, there was none. You had to wipe your ass with grass and tree branches. But beyond that, you literally couldn't get something to eat. You had to like pick it up, through the drive-through window or whatever.
And then you were worried that you were going to get sick from the drive-through food.
Yeah, so it was very different here than it is in some places, and I think that's the reason why everybody's like, it ain't affecting me. But ultimately, it might not affect you yet. But we got to remember population centers. New York, California, these major population centers, people traveling all over. It might come to you. So,
and the other thing that we're dealing with is variants. Like, I mean, every virus is a living thing. It evolves seemingly at a faster rate than other organisms, at least from what I've seen. Instead of millions of years, we're talking less than a year, and it's already gotten how many different variations and mutations?
mm-hmm.
And it just seems like each time we come up with something to hit it with, it kind of just reinvents itself. And it's like, either this is the smartest damn bug in the world, or I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope it's done soon.
Yeah, I don't foresee it. Not to be the negative person, I think it's going to continue for a little while, and it's going to evolve, and people keep on saying they can't wait till things go back to the norm. Well, they got to understand it's a new norm. Do I ever think that we're going to be like crowding up places again? Maybe, but I think there's going to be a cost to that. I think it's going to be people all have to be vaccinated, or even some of these people that are vaccinated, you're hearing people are getting sick and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on right now. But to swift gears, so we don't talk too much on this. There's something that's really important to me, and I think it should be important to a lot of people. Is this month is Autism Awareness Month.
Very important.
It's very important. For those of you who do not know what autism is, autism or autism spectrum disorder refers to the broad range of conditions characterized by the challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. Yep. According to the Center for Disease Control, autism affects an estimated 1 in 54 children in the United States. It is huge.
Has it been increasing, or is it just that we're noticing it more now?
Well, this is another thing too. People, I think, they're noticing it now, and the increases, they're saying it's getting higher. A lot of people out there, like the anti-vaxxers and stuff, they believe wholeheartedly that vaccines were kind of the cause of autism, because they didn't believe that people prior to this had symptoms or had autism spectrum disorder. So I don't follow that. I don't believe that necessarily. But it's kind of like,
people have had adverse effects without a doubt, but whether it causes autism, I believe the guy who came up with that whole theory kind of like came out and said that he was lying, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there making their own hypotheses, creating their own theories on how things come. They've been doing that with every type of disorder known to man. But I think not even to talk about that. Mainly this month, we want to focus on sharing stories and providing opportunities to increase understanding and acceptance of people with autism. And I think that's important because a lot of people, there's a taboo with autism and how they are and what they're like, and people are afraid of them when you go in stores, and it's unfortunate. And myself included, when I was younger, prior to me ever working in the field, my first job ever, like real job, I worked for an agency working with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and there was a lot of people with autism spectrum disorder.
I worked with this like that too.
It was jarring at first, and it took a while to get used to. But the longer you work and understand the things they do, it like teaches you stuff about yourself and how you adapt. You know, what would you be like if you weren't able to communicate?
And a lot of them have amazing talents on top of that. Like, you know, it may be limited in one area, but they excel in another area. You see that quite often, and it's pretty amazing. My sister is a special education teacher, and her first job as a teacher was teaching a class of an integrated class, half autistic and half not, I think, down in Brooklyn. And like these were kids from the projects. And so like I got to go and visit her while she was doing that. But in addition to that, like I grew up with one of my good friends had at the time they called it Asperger's. Now it's the spectrum disorder. He, you know, sometimes they're difficult to deal with because they don't understand social cues sometimes, or they don't have the right coping skills or mechanisms. It doesn't make them a bad person or a freak or anything like that. It's just a matter of, you know, you got to learn how to navigate it. That's all.
That's what it is. It's a lack of communication on our part, because a lot of people over the years that I've worked with or that I've witnessed, they have a misunderstanding of the person they're working with or near or observing. And it's the fact that they can't communicate with them, yet the other person is entirely conscious and able to live their life without you ever needing to understand what they're trying to communicate. A lot of them are extremely brilliant. I mean, one of the things that drives me bonkers is when people talk to people with autism spectrum disorder as if they're
mentally just,
you know, like that they don't understand things, like they're slow or something, and it's not the case. Very brilliant. Some of them are very, like you said, very talented. They could play the piano or play an instrument better than you ever could, or navigate a computer better than you ever could. You can ask them a question and they'll give you the answer, yet they might not be able to respond it to you verbally.
Yeah. My sister, one of her students from that class, is now a teacher at MIT.
Wow. Yeah, see.
Or NYU, or one of the big universities. It's one or the other. But still, I mean, it's like, holy cow, I'm getting old, A. B. That's awesome.
Think about like someone like Helen Keller. Like Helen Keller was looked at as, you know, a moron, an idiot, whatever, brain dead, basically. Yet, what is she? She became a lawyer, an author.
Invented Braille.
Yeah, like I don't want to be misquoted for that. I'm not positive,
yeah,
but I mean, I know she was extremely smart, but it was basically a communication issue, and she had to learn. It took time, and I'm not saying everyone with autism is going to be able to do these things, but I'm saying it's our job to understand. They're here. They're not going anywhere. We need to make this just like a lot of these other, you know, we talk about Black History Month. We talk about Women's History Month. We need to include them.
I just want to correct myself. It was actually Louis Braille who invented it, not Helen Keller. So I apologize. Go ahead.
Yeah. We need to include them without coddling. Another thing, too, is people with, you see a lot of people, they think because something's wrong and we don't understand them entirely, that it's okay to baby or, you know, treat them like infants. And like I said, some of them are probably looking at you like, why are you talking to me like that? Or
be like, you're an ass.
Yeah, something like that, you know, so. Like I
Have you
said,
ever read or heard a TED talk by the lady who she wrote a book called Thinking in Pictures? I forget what her name is, but have you ever heard of that?
no.
So she's actually done a lot for people with autism. She's a big spokesperson for it, activist, and she also suffers from it. And the way she basically described it was like life is like thinking in pictures, whereas when you think about something, you'll have like one or two images kind of come to your head or whatever. For her, at least with her particular affliction of it, literally as she's looking at stuff, it's like looking at a nonstop slideshow, like a stop motion slideshow in individual frames. And it can be overwhelming because you add to that the other things like sound and everything else like that. But it gave her a really unique insight. She was at a cattle farm, or no, at a slaughter yard, and she noticed that the cows were understandably a little bit trepidatious about going down the chute, where all the other ones were suddenly smelling like blood and dying. They were freaking out.
Wow.
So they found that when you have the cows go around the angles, she noticed because of this ability to see things in like individual frames or however she was doing it, that it was terrifying them. So she invented cattle chutes that are actually contoured, which actually prevent stress for the animals. It makes it more humane for them to be slaughtered. And I mean, as much as you can be. But it's she gives TED Talks about it and wrote a book about it. And it's like this is a person who would have been written off as an idiot in the past.
Wow.
So it's pretty amazing.
It's wild. It's just wild that you hear stories throughout this entire month. We're going to do different segments on autism awareness, and we're excited to do it. And we have a lot of things in store that's going to be interesting. Where you would never believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a very informative month. So moving on to the next topic, debt in America. I don't know. I mean, for those of you who are financially fit,
God bless you.
Kudos to you. God bless you. But yet, for a majority of Americans, that is not the case.
We're a car repair away from destruction.
As of November 2020, consumer debt sits at $14.2 trillion. Americans carrying an average of personal debt of $92,727. These are configured.
Say that number again.
$92,727.
It's almost $1/10,000,000.
Yeah. You got to think. These are all, this debt is combined through credit card balances, student loans, mortgages, car payments,
medical bills,
you name it. So $92,000 ultimately is nothing. We always think about what we make per year. All right, I make $50,000, $60,000 a year. That's the way we do math. But when you're taking out loans and debts, these are like multi-year agreements. When you go to school,
variable interest rates. Oh my God.
When you're going to a school, whether you're going to a SUNY, CUNY, or whatever school you're going to, private university, you could be paying an average between $20,000, $40,000 to $250,000 for your education.
Yeah.
Getting out of school with that $250,000 education and becoming like a teacher making 40 grand a year, where do you see yourself paying off those loans?
Or coming out of the Culinary Institute of America with, if I had had to pay full price, it would have been $144,000.
It's crazy. So according to these studies, okay, the type of debt in 2020, average Americans held over $5,000 in debt. Their personal loans were over $16,000 and student loans were $38,000. Where do you see yourself paying that type of money in a country that's practically broke?
I mean, up until about a month ago, we were earning minimum wage in New York of what, $7.50 or $7.15 or something like that an hour.
I'm not sure how low it was. I think it depends on what part of the state.
Yeah, but still, it's a really good question because you think about it. It's like you go Part of it is frustrating for me is that when we grew up, it was constantly pounded into us, you got to get a college education, otherwise you're basically useless. No one's going to hire you. No one's going to do anything. And there is some truth to that. And I'm a big supporter of being educated. I think it's very important. I think it enriches your life. It allows you to do more things. However, the way our system is set up, you are essentially setting people up to fail the moment they graduate, unless they have like overly exceptional skills or luck or they know someone or a combination of all of those things. Because you're going out into a workforce that isn't paying you enough to pay back what you paid to get that education. God forbid you change careers.
Well, we talked about this when we talked about the United States educational system a few episodes back, is the one thing that's not really being endorsed is trade schools as much as it should be. I guess when our parents were young, I can't speak for them. They spoke of a time where when you did go to school, you would go to school for a availability of a job afterwards. A lot of people, there's so many people getting educated now for things that they ain't possibly going to get a career in once they graduate. Or they're going into an oversaturated market where they're just the 100,000th person with this liberal arts degree going to go to a job where someone has 10 years more experience than them. So, and not to speak against education in any regards, it's about knowing if your debt is worth it, I should say. Is this debt going to be able to be paid off? It's something that I think a conversation that should happen earlier on, parents talking to their children. I always tell people to shoot for the stars, but when it comes to your finances, a lot of things can hold you back financially. Like people don't realize when you're deep in debt and you have bad credit, possibly student loans, they will, garnish your wages.
They will hurt your parents.
They will take your student loans, or they will take your tax returns. They will take your belongings. It will hurt you. Buying a car, putting a down payment on a house with bad credit. How's that possible? So these conversations got to happen early, because I remember when I was in school, I didn't hear anything about credit. I didn't hear anything really about debt. Yet they were all pushing you to go to 4-year schools, which is ultimately debt.
Yeah.
But they weren't really talking to the students when you went to sit with the guidance counselor and the kid was saying, like, I want to be go to Culinary Institute of America. They got to really be telling you, at the end of this, what are you planning to do?
And are you planning to be a year-old?
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And we got to grow up sometime. And I guess that's the easiest way to grow up, is to be pushed right out into it.
Yeah.
But
it shouldn't come at the cost of your entire future financial situation. Granted, you can work your way out of the debt if you earn enough money. That's fine. You can hustle, but not everybody's going to get that opportunity.
Statistically, as recent studies have shown, 80% of Americans carry some sort of debt. Okay, that's only 20% of this country who seemingly has no debt, and who knows why? Maybe they're a part of like the 1% or 8%ers or whatever they are that don't pay anything.
Or they just had a wise strategy and they actually followed through with it, because unfortunately, to work your way out of debt is not easy. It's you have to make sacrifices, and
that's what it is. I mean, I am so far from being
oh, me too,
financially responsible. I'm the type of person, I did a play back in the day called "You Can't Take It With You." It was basically that period's time of YOLO. You only live once. You can't take it with you. So I'm always pedal to the metal, and I feel like
you're like the Brothers Karamazov's older brother.
Yeah, there was no such thing as saving for a rainy day. I was that guy who, when I went to college, I took out credit cards. I swiped away. Want new shoes? Cha-ching! Oh, gas in the car? Cha-ching! Whatever it's got to be. And I know I'm not the only one, because there's 80% of Americans have some sort of debt. So
I cut up all my credit cards to prevent making more. Let's put it that way.
There's so many more now. people wonder how you get in debt.
And they still send me ads for new credit cards. I'm like, are you kidding me?
You don't need credit cards to get in debt now. Like there's so many other things. There's things out there called like you buy now, pay later, where there's a lot of different sites out there where you could purchase any item you want. Different progressive leasings where you own the item, but you're making small minimum payments. But when it's all said and done, you might be paying triple for the item. These are other forms of debt that kind of screw people into precarious situations.
I get about $70 taken out of my check every week just to pay for the laptop that I had to get in order to do my job. And I'm going to be paying that $70 a week for the next year.
Yeah. See, that's crazy. That's crazy. But at the end of the day, it was an investment. So that's what I'm telling. When I'm telling people about debt, is I'm not trying to say, oh, poor me, I made a bad decision in life. I'm trying to tell you, when you make these decisions, is it worth it? If that $70 a week is going to help you gain more clients so you can edit jobs, so that you can do this podcast, so that you can have a better quality of life, then you know what? That $70 a week is worth it.
Yeah.
But if you're going to take something like that and buy a pair of sneakers for $300 a pair, or do something reckless. I mean, if it's worth it to you, then hey, whatever. But the debt in this country, the credit card companies, the loan shark companies, it's really crazy.
Like if I were smart, I would take the entire stimulus check, which I finally got. Thank Christ. I don't know how that finally came through, but amen. Just found that this morning in my mailbox. And I was like, ooh, what is this? If I were smart, I'd put every cent of that towards different loans. The necessity of the matter is I'm going to have to put some of it towards loans, some of it towards rents, some of it towards this, and then all of a sudden it's all done.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is, really, ultimately.
Yeah. And that's not even going out and buying like crazy stuff, but there's also a mental health factor as well that isn't being addressed. Like, just like, there's issues with mental health that are causing people to go nutso. How many people go do shopping therapy or go buy junk food, which costs money? And if you add all that up at the end of the year, like I don't even want to add it up because I think it would be massively depressing.
Well, it was the whole thing, like the person that goes to get coffee and a bagel every morning for breakfast. If you think about it, okay, the bagel's $2, the coffee's $1.50, so that's $3.50 a day. You times that by 10 days in a pay cycle, and I'm sure you get lunch some of those days, maybe 5
and
out of the 10 days.
And a bottle of water here,
and you're just thinking about sustaining that without packing your own lunch. You're talking about how much money you're really spending. So even debt, I feel like the cure to debt is financial awareness and thinking ahead and planning.
Or organizing your apartment.
Yeah, or like I said, cutting up those credit cards. I mean, my fiance, when we first got together, she had taken out a few $1,000 credit card to Walmart, and she bought some house things that she wanted. We just got in the house. She wanted to buy some things, whatever, and she was paying that card off for like nearly 3 years, and all she was doing is paying the interest.
Yeah.
It became a time where she just had to take out a chunk of money out of her savings and just pay off the entire credit card, because you're literally just paying interest. Same thing with student loans. If you're not paying the premium, you're basically paying the interest. You could be paying the student loans for a very long time if you're not hitting that number. And
they will harass the living hell out of you until you are dead, and then they will harass your family in your place.
And like this, like we were talking about debt. When I talk about debt, I talk about credit hand in hand. With bad credit, there's a lot of companies out there that will take advantage of you. Personal experience here. I drive to Hoopty for years. I mean, I had the gas tank taped down. The tires were bald. There was all sorts of oil leaks. It was about time I got a new car. My credit was bad. Made some bad decisions. Took out credit cards like I shouldn't have. Wasn't paying my student loans.
Consolidated it to pay it off, right?
No. But what I had to do is, with those bad decisions, I got guaranteed, loan guarantee from a car company. And being silly as I was, I jumped on the first offer I got. And, the car was no more than $6,000. And I was paying it for years. And I look at it, it's $7,000. I owe. What? How is that possible? Been paying a large sum. It grew over the years paying it. It's because basically the first few years you have the car, you're just paying, even though it's a $6,000 car, you're paying probably $18,000 for it. You're paying 3 times the car's worth with those guaranteed loan companies. So to me, they're no different than loan sharks back in the day, and the mafioso was smoking a big stogie, and they're like,
it really is.
I'm gonna give you $1,000, and I'm gonna need 10,000 back, or else I break your legs.
I'm gonna call you 14 times a day until you want to destroy your phone because you've got 100 calls because you're a day late.
Exactly, and that's what I feel like a lot of these companies, unfortunately, they're geared to go after people with poor financial standing, and it's unfortunate.
Our country is based on debt. Like capitalism, for any of the positive parts about it, and I do think it is better than other systems. The downside is it relies heavily on debt, especially nowadays. But if you want to constantly have growth, you have to fund it somehow, and eventually that means you're going to have to borrow. And so when it gets to the point where everybody's in debt like we currently are, what do we do then? We start selling debt.
Oh yeah, well, that's a silly thing too. There was a show, just to add in there. Anyone who's ever seen the show Mr. Robot, it's like the biggest fantasy that you can ever have. Mr. Robot, you got this world-renowned hacker. He's hacking into prison systems. He's hacking into, banks. He's doing all this crazy stuff. But basically, he is trying to save the world from these debt companies and these credit companies and these insurance companies screwing everyone over. And his main objective is to wipe the world clean of debt. So
and
a lot of these,
his eyes bugging out of his head too.
Yeah, much of the debt would be, much of these companies would be screwed because now they're losing millions and millions and billions of dollars. But every citizen, like every average Joe, would have a clean slate. They would have no more like giant payments, no more medical bills coming in. It would basically be starting at zero for the first time ever. Most of us
down like 100%. Like wouldn't that like cause everything to crash?
Well, that's what it was, a double-ended sword at the same time. It was a revolution. The show was like a revolution. And
I mean, he was on
the reason why I'm saying it is it's like for a lot of people, that's their ultimate fantasy, is just to get to owe no one nothing. And a lot of us never really had a chance. Like you said, you're 18 years old, 17 years old, planning to go to college. You're making adult decisions that are like mortgage payments. 6 months after you graduate, Uncle Sam is like, or not Uncle Sam, a company that's connected to Uncle Sam is like,
you're like, I'll buy that off you so I can call them every freaking day.
Give me some of that cash.
Yeah,
but it's an interesting thing. But to add to some things that I actually think are heroic companies, and I got a lot of, I fought with a bunch of people on Instagram and even on Facebook about it, is a few of these borrow sites. Anyone ever heard of the app EarnIn? EarnIn, to me, is a saving grace company. They allow people to cash their checks early if they need money. Now, people call this irresponsible, which it may be. However, rainy days do happen to all of us. If you ever end up in a situation where, like, your car breaks down, you run out of gas,
or pandemic happens.
Why did you run out of gas? Well, because my car broke down, I had to buy new tires, blah, 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 blah. It allows you to cash some of your check early with up to $100 a day, up to $500, I think, a pay period. But you have to build kind of like your own credit with them. And it's not based on credit. It's based on paying them back, whatever it is. So you basically put in your information, your debit card, whatever. And
it's an auto withdrawal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an auto withdrawal. But for some people that have automatic withdrawals from bills, EarnIn has saved them many, many dollars. And you
Overdraft
could
fees.
choose to give a tip. They don't charge you a monthly fee. It's basically run on tips and generosity. So Earnin, to me, is a really good company for those who have had issues in the past with certain debts, or, not for nothing, the banks. I forget what the statistic is, but banks made billions of dollars last year alone from underdraft fees. So they literally made billions of dollars on the backs of people who had no money in their accounts to pay them. Think about it. You were so broke, their customers were so poor that in between pay periods, every day or every 3 days, they charged that $35 fee and then that bounce back return fee. Sometimes people owed a couple $100s out of their paycheck just on overdraft fees.
Yep.
And people say, well, they should have been more responsible. Maybe they should have, but they're literally taking money out of people's bank accounts that had none at all.
And read the fine print, because when I opened business a long time ago now, I had no idea what I was doing. That was a slow process. And I went and opened a business account, which, that's the normal thing that you do. I didn't realize that the overdraft protection thing that I put on actually was costing me, I think, $50 a month. And it would cost you $50 a month if your balance fell below, let's say, like $20 or something like that. I'm doing it on the side, so I wasn't always getting consistent work. And in the wintertime, wasn't getting any work, so it was empty. And meanwhile, I racked up probably like $500-$600 in overdraft protection fees that I didn't even realize it until I got a letter one day saying, by the way, you owe us all of this.
Yeah, so
I just about crapped my pants.
that's why you got to keep all those things in check.
Same thing with taxes, late fees.
No, that's another whole thing in itself. But to me, I don't even want to get into that, because to me, it's sometimes it's a scam. But put it this way, my partner and I, for the Catskill International Film Festival, we went to do our partnership taxes, and I guess we filed like, I think, a day late, and they told us, you owe us $500 in a late fee.
What?
And I'm like, what?
For 1 day.
For 1 day. And we're talking about a business that's primarily a public service. When we talk about doing a Catskill International Film Festival, yes, we have thousands of people watching from across the world. Yes, we have a lot of people that submitted, but we're not making buco cash. We're literally, half the submissions we get from waivers, if not more. We offer waivers to anyone who asks, because we don't want a film being turned down for, if they just don't have the finances for it, because we understand most indie artists have a lot of debt. So now we're talking about independent artists. They're probably like 9.5 out of 10, or they're probably 99.5% out of 100 in debt. As we talked about before, the 80%, they're probably 99.5. But you don't want to hurt those people. So
when you're an artist, they don't tell you that you still have to be a wise businessman when you're in high school making that decision of what you want to do. And they're not teaching in business classes either.
Yeah. I think when it all comes down to it, instead of us babbling about these life experiences about debt, what it comes down to is pay off what you can pay. A lot of times there's free services out there that you can check your credit, see what kind of bills that you do owe. And a lot of people don't know this, but there's some credit cards that actually, like, how Donald Trump, filed for bankruptcy a million times. Well, there's loopholes in the system of what credit cards you should actually pay off. Now, when I spoke to certain debt consultants, when I spoke to some debt consolidation companies, they would say, hey, listen, it's not even worth paying this. After a certain amount of time, it's worthless. Just focus on the bills that matter, that are going to affect you. And certain companies are relentless. I've heard stories.
And a lot of them will settle.
Exactly. For someone to say that they're not going to take a certain amount of money, a lot of companies, they're expecting the top dollar back each month. Mm-hmm. But you might be able to work out with them. Figure that out to get yourself out of debt.
And there are also some options, like one that I took, that I availed myself with was went to a credit union and I got a loan to cover the cost of two of my credit cards and one student loan, and I used that to pay it off because it was a lower interest rate to repay that loan than it was to pay the other loans, which both of them had higher interest rates. And so it's, there are options, ways to consolidate. The only one that you can't consolidate and you can't bankrupt, you can't do anything with, is private student loans.
Yeah. Isn't that unfortunate? Now that just, when we talked about this many episodes ago, and I always bring it back, keep your politicians accountable, because ultimately one of the most important things that any, person that really cares about you, it should be education of its people, so they're not ignorant, so they're not stupid, so we're not getting taken.
They're smarter than us.
They want to, that's what it is. They want to feel like they're smarter than us. They can talk above us. We got to keep them accountable, because if you think about it, why is it if you go through bankruptcy and all this other things, why are student loans not vanquished when you're going to spend years paying them off? Listen, I don't want to get too political, but everyone knows my opinion on education. It should be something free.
Or at least lower cost.
No, I think it should be free, and I think you should have options. If you want to go spend more money at a private university and throw it at the wind,
That's your choice.
go do that. But for me, certain things for its people, when we spend so much money abroad on reckless things, and like our infrastructure is crumbling.
Insurance. How much do you spend on insurance every check?
Oh yeah, you think about that.
And how good is your insurance? Because I'll tell you what, when I got on unemployment, never in my life have I had better insurance. Yet I was paying close to $150 a week. Sometimes, about $300 every 2 weeks at my last job.
And that's not even the medication pays.
Yeah, and I was still paying copays. I wasn't even getting coverage on everything I needed. It took getting fired to get good insurance. How's that okay?
Yeah. And like I said, we could do the ranting and raving all day about our personal things, because we know we're touching home with 80% of Americans, because 80% of Americans have some sort of debt. Even the people with wealth that have that, that black card with like 50K on it, that's debt. If you got some, 30,000 spent on it,
that debt. Gold card ain't so nice.
But it's debt. But it's good to have some debt. It's good.
Yes.
The credit card, they'll build your credit limits to help you out. But that's also, it's kind of tempting when you want to spend some money. So just remember that. Be aware. If you're deep in debt right now and you're out there is consultation companies out there that will help you get out of that situation, making low payments, trying to put you on a track record to build your credit. There's actually unsecured cards where if you are unable to have a credit card, that you can put money on to match that limit, that through purchases, you're able to build
a low limit credit card. Yeah. Like that's how you rebuild your credit after a bankruptcy in some ways. Like the other thing is if you are someone who is going to go for bankruptcy, you have to take into account that they're going to look at your spending pattern. So if you go apply for bankruptcy, you continue accumulating debt after you've already started that process, you're going to have a harsher result. Like you're not going to get as much leniency as if you show a pattern of actually trying to pay back some of it and to stop adding to it when you go for your bankruptcy. And then also take into account that bankruptcy costs about $1,200 for a lawyer. So the thing that you need money to get out of debt, you still have to pay like $1,200 for, unless you're specialized in legal fields, that I'm not. I think I would probably lose my mind.
Yeah. So with that said, there is a way out, people. Teach your kids young. For all those educators out there that are teaching like finance classes, accounting classes, remember, budgeting is key. And before we get too deep in this topic, we always like to shine it up a little bit. Tonight, we have a wonderful, wonderful guest. I got to meet her. She submitted one of her projects to last year's Catskill International Film Festival. It was absolutely breathtaking. Whisperers and Witnesses. Her name is Wendy Stuart Kaplan. She is an actress, comedian, camera host, model, author, you name it, adventurer. We cannot wait to have her tonight.
Welcome to the show.
How are you guys doing? I'm here to shine it up.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Loving
tonight.
the background.
Thank you. I do a show, an LGBTQ show, so hence the rainbow flag prior to this, as well as a couple of other shows. So yeah, I'm raring to go. And it's really great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I came in on the tail end of the discussion on debt as something a lot of people are dealing with. This pandemic, of course, really put the icing on the cake with that for a lot of people.
Absolutely. So how have you been throughout this pandemic? I know you've been staying busy.
Yeah, so it was more than staying busy. So I'll take you back to March 12th. I'm a performer. I never had a survival job. I've only ever earned my money modeling, acting, stand-up comedy, emceeing, filmmaking. No, but it's something that I do. It doesn't bring in bucks, but it's my passion. But all of a sudden, March 12th, they shut New York down. And as far as I was concerned, people in the arts were kicked to the curb.
Yeah.
No, right. I know you all get it. No safety net, nothing. Those early days of unemployment for people when you couldn't even get on the sites. And man, I have friends, it was crazy. I have friends that were absolutely hurting and going down. And March 12th, they shut New York down. March 13th, I stood in my kitchen and said, I am mad as hell and I am not going to take this anymore. And I came up with a show called Pandemic Cooking with Wendy. And what that did, I don't cook, by the way. You all need to know that. What could be better of a comedian than watching me forage for food in my own kitchen and the mistakes I made? But you know what? It was all funny. And as a performer, it allowed me to use so many parts of myself. My comedy, I have a closet full of costumes, wigs. And the best thing is it was my own concept. So I could say whatever the heck I damn well pleased. And I did, and people listened. And the next thing I knew, I started to get paid gigs from this as a guest, started doing speaking, did a lot of other people's podcasts for free, and move forward with that Pandemic Cooking, which is still going on. We have 109 episodes up right now and going strong. And that show is being tailored for bigger platforms so that we can monetize that. And God bless my husband, who's the shooter on all our films. He was the person that shot Pandemic Cooking. I know there's people that self-tape. I am not one of them. Chemically wise, I need to have someone holding that camera that I'm in front of. It just works for me. And then in July of this year, we came up with a concept for another show in Milford, Pennsylvania, where I spend my Saturdays and Sundays. I help run an LGBTQ. I gave a lot of the parties and events there, and I'm a social butterfly, and that's what I like to share with people. And I'm a big networker, not in a superficial way, in a personal way. I wanted people to meet other people. It's like with your Catskill Film Festival. It was great to be able to do it virtually, but the biggest loss for me, had there been that red carpet, Charles, I would have been there every freaking day. I love that. I love getting to talk, getting to talk to people on that level. So I gave all of the events for Triversity, our organization over in Milford, Pennsylvania. Well, our executive director had been talking with me, and we were thinking, okay, we need to float people's boats in another way. Why don't we do a show? And we came up with a show called Triversity Talk, which has been tremendous for me. We brought in speakers and people that are involved in entertainment. I had Flavio Alves from The Garden Left Behind on that show. That's an award-winning film. And I would have never met him if it weren't for doing this show. And we had, two gay dads from California that were both performers. So we really were able to cast a big net all over the country and not only bring on entertaining people, we brought on political. Listen, I am the kind of person that will talk and touch upon anything. I don't have a filter or a boundary. So we did that show. And then in November in New York, there's a restaurant in New York called Pangea that supports filmmakers, singers, cabaret artists, performance artists, and regular artists. And they've been there, and they've been like the heart and soul of the Lower East Side. And I thought, what can we do to shine a light on them? Because y'all know so many restaurants went under, especially New York is a freaking ghost town in some ways. Some have survived, but a lot of them and a lot of business is gone. And I thought, well, gee, you know, we'll start doing a live stream show from here that will honor like people in the entertainment industry. And I named it If These Walls Could Talk. And I'm on that show with my co-host, Tim Moss, who's also an incredible actor. And he released a movie right before the pandemic called Junk. Thank God it was released in November. So we had the red carpet and everything 2 years ago. Then, of course, you know, it's history with the pandemic hitting in March. But he's an amazing interviewer. We have great chemistry. And my PR people have given me the most incredible musicians. I've had on Scott Page from Pink Floyd, Leland Sklar, the world-renowned Leland Sklar. I know, right. You can find the show. It's on my YouTube page. It's called If These Walls Could Talk. And it's been a who's who of people, one after the next. And then I mix it up with, like, I have a writer coming on, a local writer, Donna Florio, growing up on Bank Street. Her book is doing quite well. A lot of people know her. A lot of people don't know her. So it's just like with film, right? You have your blockbusters, and then you have people that are really doing dynamic things that you want to shine the light on. And my modeling, some of it has come back. A lot of it hasn't. I freelance with a bunch of agencies. You know, it's a big struggle here. One of the things, though, you guys talked about, and if I can parlay back, and you can shut me up whenever you need to, because I just talk in a run-on sentence. So jump in.
We like it. Go ahead.
So I know on people's shows, they're like, it's great. We can relax and just let you talk. You were talking about the thing about debt, right? And you were saying even the person with the black card has, black Amex card has debt. Here's what's not cool about that, all right? This pandemic, working and middle class people, a lot of my friends have kept their jobs. My daughter kept her job, no salary cut, all being able to work from home. Their lives were not disrupted. The pandemic has been horrific enough. We've all lost people or know people physically damaged, but their structure of their lives have not been disrupted. But you take a lot of working people, a lot of middle class people, and it's like, how the heck are they supposed to pay their bills? You're right. Wealthy people have been impacted, but guess what? Those pockets go down deep. It is the pain that everybody else is going through. And
how many homeowners are going to be screwed because of the debt of their tenants not paying? Like, that was one thing that I would not consider, like, throughout this entire thing. Like, even though I've been through some tough financial times as a result, as have everybody else.
Right.
The idea of not paying my rent or being more than a day or two late, if need be,
out of the question.
Is, like, no, it's not okay.
Right. But how about if you literally have no money, So I grew up with the words on my brother's keeper. All right. I really believe that. That, to me, I come from a Protestant and Jewish background. It's not Christian, but I believe in the words on my brother's keeper. And that is something we all really need to become mindful of during this time, because you're right. People are saying, oh, the landlords are asking for the rent. Well, what are they supposed to do? Because they got to pay taxes on the property. And yet the person renting from them can't pay the rent because they have nothing to pay that with. I really believe, in this great country of ours, we need to structure programs to start retraining people. People want to work. They don't want to be laid off. All right. But when you've got factories closing in towns, what are people in those towns supposed to do? Talk to some of those people. There've been enough films made about it. You guys, we'll take it from a film perspective. You saw Nomadland, for the Academy Award.
Oh, yeah. Is that with,
that's with, oh God, what's her name? It always leaves my head. The director is female, and the woman who stars in it, big actress, right? Why did she do this story? I didn't know that there are hundreds of retirees that are so down to the last penny that they take their last penny and they buy a not very nice mobile home or a truck, something that's just got wheels, and they move from place to place like nomads with no roots. They don't necessarily get to see their families. So I don't think we can turn our back on all of this. I think I'm sitting here. I don't have a solution. I really don't. But I know that what's going on right now, I know it's not right. I know that it's not right. They really have to. I grew up middle class. I believe in the middle class. I grew up, you were talking about college. My college was $800 a semester. Okay. And if you couldn't pay that, they got you a work study job. And there weren't thousands of people getting work study jobs. You went
Mine was 66,000.
That's about right nowadays. My daughter's was very close to that, 62, I think. And she's got the same deal with the loans. Thank God she has a job. But it's just, I think things have gotten way out of proportion. You want people to better themselves, they need an education. Now, not everybody is cut out for a 4-year university. I grew up in a time when there were things called trade schools. Trades are wonderful. We need them. The only way I've even earned money is by going to a trade school. Right.
I went to college. I went to a high-end university, but because I switched careers, I ended up having to go back to school to be a medical assistant, which availed me the opportunity of earning $15 an hour, which is now the minimum wage.
Right.
And that hasn't changed. So it's.
But okay, let's talk about your $66,000. Okay. Your college cost. If someone had told you, isn't there an obligation instead of them just taking our money or our children's money? Isn't there an obligation to turn around and say, hey, you know what? There aren't jobs for this particular thing out there. Sending everybody for a liberal arts education makes absolutely no sense to me. And I've had parents say, well, it rounds the kids out. Well, I guess if you want to continue to have to support them, there's tons of parents still supporting their kids. There are tons of them. How do we rebalance this society that we're living in? Because in my estimation, it really needs a rebalancing.
To me, my personal opinion is it needs to start, I don't want to say a reset button, where we need to put our focus more on the children and education and what is worth them going to that much debt for. Are they going to be able to recoup that type of money or make a salary worth paying that back? And that's that main discussion. When you're talking about how artists have been affected, a lot of people don't realize this because they're not in the art industry. They're not in the entertainment industry in general. But a lot of entertainers, they were waiters, waitresses, bartenders,
my friends, right?
Hairstylists, makeup artists, on top of doing, the side gigs, because it's, revolving money. Side gig. But when all these restaurants are closing and everything, they were kind of thrown out into a circumstance. And I know a lot of people now, they have no incentive to go back to work because they're making more, some of them that got unemployment, than they were making while working.
Right.
So
I have heard too.
Yeah, so it's such a weird situation right now. So
at one point I was too, back when they were doing the extra $600 a week, I was literally doubling what I was earning at my job, plus getting free insurance that was triple the amount as good as what I was paying.
Nobody's going to point at you and tell you what you did was wrong. That was 100% the right thing to do. So how do we now, coming out of all of this, what's the solution? How do we employ in the actors, the filmmakers? How do we make those side gigs happen again? All right. Or what do we need to set up? So maybe the side gigs of waitering and doing that, maybe those aren't the side gigs anymore. Maybe it's something that's got to do with technology. I would say probably yes. That
or
people
farming.
Right. But something that human beings can be trained to do that doesn't cost them a freaking fortune. I'm working on a film tomorrow, and you all know NYU's wonderful filmmaking school. It's someone from NYU, and he's terrific. I did another film with him, and you'll end up hearing his name everywhere. But I said, he told me he was home with his family this past year. I said, I am curious. The NYU is known for, it's the highest tuition you could ever, it's astronomical. I'm like, did they still make you pay the same tuition? Yeah, they did. I'm sorry, that's not right. That is just not right.
Yeah, that's what's happening in a lot of places. Even worse, I see what I've been noticing with a lot of companies right now, and I want to get more into the entertainment stuff, but a lot of companies I'm noticing, they were hit hard during the pandemic, yet instead of gradually, making financial moves, what they do is they want to recoup that money instantly by upping the price.
Right.
Little things like going to the movies. Okay, so they just recently opened the movie theaters in New York. I don't know if anyone has noticed how much higher they are. So okay, it's only a couple dollars more. But when you think about it, it's probably
it used to cost $4 to go to the movies.
It's a good like 30% higher now.
Right.
The ticket prices. That's a giant increase.
How is an average person, Charles, with 2 or 3 kids supposed to take their family there? And I'm sure the popcorn is more.
Everything. And that's just
popcorn's like $10.
Yeah, you have to look at the bottom line with all of this. Where does it end? So what do we do? That's the question.
I think, there's no right answer or wrong answer, but what I've been saying, I think since the beginning of this podcast, and I think your podcasts and your shows have been created the same way. You adapted to change.
Yep.
And we were like, listen, we want to still connect with people. We still want to have interesting conversations. We still want to have a film festival, but how do we do it when the world is shut down? Yeah. Now, my mind is still set for, my mind is still set for a brick and mortar event. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to do it, but I don't want to lose contact and lose touch and communication with people. So we have to adapt. So to me, all the filmmakers out there and all the artists that are going out there and they're adapting this change, they're creating shows online. They're creating safe productions with, socially distant masks. They inspire the crap out of me. They're like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys are making it happen. You're not shutting down and laying over and dying.
Of course not. No, my performer friends, what we started doing. Oh, so I didn't even touch on this. We started doing these Zoom variety shows where, you'd have stand-up comedians, you'd have drag queens. I did sketches, and then you put in your, and I didn't do the Venmo tipping for me. I did it to organizations that I knew needed money because I've been working throughout the thing with all my reinventions. But it was such an incredible thing to take all of our talents, and then the stage, of course, became Zoom. And it cool. Amazed me. Even your film festival, Charles, you put the whole thing. You put the whole thing virtual. I agree with you. I can't wait for it to be, for real, like where you can talk to people and walk on a red carpet. But what I'm thinking, give people a hug. I'm thinking moving forward into this new normalcy, because none of us know what it's going to be. All right. We don't. No. And the new normalcy, maybe it's both. Maybe it's virtual, and it's going to have to be a balance. How do we balance out the virtual world with the live world? That's where the challenge is going to be.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you said that because, this summer I'm planning a dual film premiere at an actual brick and mortar location. And I know it's going to be a limited capacity, more limited than usual. But, rumors have it that the movie theaters and other arenas will be up to 50 or even higher percentage by July. So if that's the case, I'm hoping to have a brick and mortar in-person event, but also possibly do it virtual so people still can participate in this experience.
Right.
Movie theaters actually, like AMC, I think, are actually opening up their theaters for small events up to 50 people.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's good and all, but like when you're thinking of when you're talking about a movie premiere that so many people are involved with, a lot of people, this moment, their friends, their family, they want them all to be there.
Right.
And I'm not used to having a 50-person premiere. I'm used to having like hundreds of people at least. It's your moment. And having a 50-person premiere, like you have no other choice but to adapt. So maybe in the future, but there's ways around it. Maybe you could have this event multiple times. Maybe you could,
Right. That's a good.
There's other ways to do it. Sometimes it's not the cost-effective way. Before you throw one event, it's a one-night event, and boom, there goes your dollars. But you got to do what you got to do. And the thing about this industry, I'm sure Wendy, you can relate. If you disappear for a long period of time,
that's it.
It's over. Your spark is done. You're done.
You be toast. And believe me, you can't. You know what? If you're 20 years old, you can probably get back in. If you're anybody else, forget it. You are done, and they have put the nail in your coffin. So here's what I want to talk about. You're talking about 50% this summer. There's a big inequality in all of this, okay? And with the COVID guidelines and everything else. I'm watching, even in New York, venues find a way around this, all right? Throughout the pandemic, you guys, this really blew me away because these big productions have buco bucks. All of our smaller people were shut down, but they continued. The Netflix things continue. Maybe a couple of them got canceled, and maybe they got put behind because a few people tested positive on a given day. But for the most part, they were able to ride the COVID wave with COVID guidelines, with tests. Yeah, right. But they did it in such, there were productions going on here in New York. I know friends that do extra work that were having like a bunch of extras. That costs a lot of money to do with the COVID guidelines. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to put it
we filmed last year, and it was the same thing. Like, we had all those people come and follow guidelines, do what they got to do, did it outside, and everybody was okay.
How many people are you talking about?
How many were on the set?
Oh, I don't think she's talking. I think she's talking about big productions, like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the reason I'm bringing up big productions is it Stefan or Steven, by the way? Stefan.
Yeah.
The reason I'm bringing up big productions is, once again, we're dealing with the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
Right. It still bothers me to this degree. I was booked on a big job in September, and it was obvious, between, they had someone there from OSHA, they had the COVID project manager or whatever that new title is, that you do a $50 certificate and now you're qualified. Okay. They had all, like, the two makeup artists, they had all the bells and whistles. Meanwhile, people I know that were making films had to stop. And I'm talking about the small independent films. I mean, if I had my way in this country, to me, there is so much money. The arts, instead of people struggling to raise their money, the arts, I believe, should be subsidized. There should be monies available for people's projects,
People
don't realize that, like, one of the great things about America, and one of the great things, about the arts community, is it's like, this is what puts us apart from, like, third world countries, like the support of the arts community. And, like, when you don't respect it, what difference would it make? We entertain people. We're people's, therapy. Yep. When you take that away, right now we're talking about multiple collective issues. We're talking about the opioid crisis. We're talking about suicide rising. We're talking about,
depression in general,
mass shootings in general. Not to blame anything on one issue, but it stems, like, when we take away, no more concerts, no more, the things you enjoy.
People need inspiration.
Being with people.
Right. It's the stuff that makes you a human being. You take that away, and then what are you left with? Listen, even with the schools, that's been the big controversial thing. Half the kids coming in, half the kids learning at home. Oh my God, 10 people tested positive. Now everybody's learning at home. What I think, personal opinion, I think we could have been better prepared for this. We weren't. And I'm going to flat out say it. I don't care which side of the fence you're on. I don't care which party you vote for. We were not prepped for this. And they knew this in November. You know what? And I believe in this great country of ours. This is the United States of America, goddammit. We should have had better preparation. I had a damn week in New York. All right. March 6th, I was hiking out in Milford, Pennsylvania. All right. I gave an event there, and I'm hearing about this virus. And I'm in a place called the Water Wheel Cafe. You all may know it in Milford. And we're doing an event there. And people I didn't know are coming over to me and they're wanting to hug me and shake my hand. This is March 6th. And I said, don't do that. I said, they say there's this virus out there. Me, who's so well educated, they say there's a virus that's coming here. And you know what I heard from most people? Oh, don't worry about it. It's just going to be like a flu.
I still hear that.
Right. I know. But when you have that, I mean, I don't even know where to go with that. And yes, yeah, that's
because at the time too, if you think about it at the time, it wasn't being pushed as serious as it became. Remember, like we weren't given the information. Yeah, they knew, but they weren't publicizing that type of information.
I had a little bit of a forewarning because I had a friend who knew someone who worked in government, and so we got like a little bit of a warning, just like, hey, go buy some food, and then every single thing in that warning came true, and I was like,
you could.
I freaked out.
To add what you're saying though, because I heard some warnings too, because I work in a similar field. I heard some warnings, but here's the thing: whenever in our lifetime have we been told stock up on a Y2K? When were we ever told like the world is going to end tomorrow? Like no one ever knew. Like I mean, they knew, but yeah, like 2012, like we didn't really know. At my work, they changed where we were stationed for 6 months. But when we were first removed, they told us it was only going to be 2 weeks that we were going to be moved.
I think, Charles, what happened here, they didn't know. And in most of the world, they didn't know. So let's just roll back to this great country of ours. I'm sorry, we should have known. I'm a member of the Explorers Club, and it's 3,400 people in the world. It's filled with scientists, filmmakers, and a lot of geniuses. I'm not one of them. I'm a filmmaker. But you get my drift. There were scientists in that club back in November. I was always taking people on tours through the club. It's a 5-story club, and we've got incredible things about exploration in there. And back then, I heard scientists talking, hey, you all better get ready. And I thought it was, people overreacting or trying to show how smart they were. By the time the end of January rolled around, and they took from Wuhan overhead cameras of the amount of cars pulling into the main hospital in Wuhan. I'm sorry, it was no longer a secret at that point. And you know what? We are smart here.
They admitted it as much, too. They said they knew.
We should have been better prepared. Charles, to your point, one of the things I think, and I've talked about this with a lot of people, I know they didn't want to panic people. Guess what? They should have done a better job of panicking us because there's a lot of dead people in New York City. We got hit the hardest when this whole thing came down, and no one knew what hit them. I am still damaged. I'm on the 10th floor of an apartment in New York, and all I could hear that first middle of March were ambulances day and night and refrigerator trucks 3 blocks from where I lived. That's something I will never forget. And it's completely changed my perspective as a performer, as someone that does film, and how I'm going to see the world going forward. Ask yourselves, who will you trust after this?
No one.
Can you go back and can you trust your government? Can you trust your employer? Who can you trust?
See, that's another topic that I think is a hot topic right there. When you say trust, good for bringing it up. See, Wendy, when you talk about hot topics and you talk about trust, a lot of people who have been lied to or misled for years by the government,
they have
and regardless of what party, they've been misled, financially.
They're all the same party.
They're working for big corporations at the end of the day who bought them into their presidencies or whatever office they may hold. And then now they're, with the vaccine going out and seemingly pushing these vaccines. Do you trust? Not saying you personally, but like, how does one trust everything that's kind of being?
The fact that they put it on the open market killed it.
What is it, Stefan?
The fact that they put it on the open market and put it to the highest bidder made the whole thing a farce.
Right. But then you have to say to yourself, how much freedom do you personally want, all right, to have? And what's your risk level to go unvaccinated? I made the choice as a person who makes film in Africa. Anytime you go into Africa, you show a yellow card that has your yellow fever vaccine on it. All right. That is a horrible vaccine. A lot of people have very bad reactions to it. Guess what? You're not getting on that continent without it. So when this came down the pike, I am anxious to get out there as soon as possible. I was on the subway today. Where the subways, the number of people on them is definitely more than it was a few months ago. Everyone's got their mask on except for the crazies. We got a lot more crazies than we used to. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're not masked. All right. But I had to think of that. And I had to think of the fact I'm getting on a plane and going to Florida next week because there's something I need to do there. I would not do any of that without a vaccination. And I've had both of mine, and I am taking my chances the same as anyone else is. Do I know 100% that it's safe? I don't know. But to me, to walk around unvaccinated and not be able to ride the subway, I would certainly not get on the subway unless I was vaccinated. I would not get on a plane. Those were petri dishes before this happened. I know they're telling us they've cleaned up the air and everything. I don't believe that for 1 minute. So for me to have my personal freedom, and I have friends of mine that are like, they're waiting. I'm like, you probably should wait. I said, but for someone like me, I'm going to be out there again. All right.
Yeah, I can't stay inside. Otherwise, I fall apart.
And nobody is going to be paying me all the time to be on a live stream. I have to go to bookings. I got to shoot my films. I have to physically show up. I'll still continue to live stream, but I need to be able to combine both those worlds. And living in New York City, you need to have those vaccines. If you're, at the Catskill area or Milford, it's beautiful. The air is clean. Yeah, there's numbers of people getting sick, but you can really protect yourself a lot better there. It's only when if you guys don't get vaccinated, right? And you go to put a film production together. All right. And everyone's fine till one person comes in contact with, and it can happen to anyone. This thing is so, I never saw anything so contagious in my life. And the new variants are even more contagious.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, what's your risk factor? I don't know if either of you have elderly parents that you're around.
Oh, I have plenty of risk factors. My mom does too. Like everybody in our family, like I'm still waiting to get my vaccine. I'm still trying to get an appointment.
You're trying to get it, but you will get if you're in New York State, you will get it. But did your mom get vaccinated?
Yes, finally she got her second dose. Yeah.
That was something she wanted, even though we're here talking about this. We don't know. I mean, yeah. I adore Anthony Fauci. I knew him from the days of HIV and AIDS. I heavily went through that plague. All right. But again, we're putting something into our bodies. We are taking a chance. And it's, but I got COVID. I had it. It's weird. It's probably one of the weirdest things on the face of the earth. And sure as I sit here, I was sure it was manufactured in a lab. Now I read everything. I thought this is a science fiction disease. Okay. I never had anything so weird in my life that I lost my smell and taste for almost 8 months. And then I'm in this international smell and taste group with people from all over that all got sick in March, and they all lost their smell and taste. What kind of thing does this to you? It's crazy. There were people that had their toes turn purple from it. Sorry, but this is like sci-fi. And yet they have proven to the best of their ability. Again, we're back to trust. To the best of their ability, they do think it's a variant that crosses over from bats into people. And no one is sure what happened in that lab, Stefan. No one's coming clean about that. The World Health Organization was over there. I have read anything I could get my hands on because I want to know what happened. There's not a day that I don't wake up and say, what the hell happened? I want to know what happened and why we weren't prepared. Did we're in the filmmaking business. Did you either of you see that film? Was it Contagion? Pandemic. It was run on Netflix. That film was shot and finished 6 months before this thing hit. It was exactly what happened. How the heck did they know? They weren't making a film from
every pandemic film for the past 10 years has run along the same thing. And
we made the
same mistakes in every single one, and we weren't ready for it.
Well, that was the movie Contagion. That came out a few years earlier, but Contagion was very much like that.
Right. And the one pandemic I watched, they released it during the pandemic, and I'm like, holy moly, this is and it's a very reputable documentary. This is exactly what's going on now. And the more I watched it, the angrier I got. I'm very angry about all of this. I'm not going to let it go. And none of us should, because it rocked our world.
Mhm.
Okay. And we should have been, the world should have been better prepared for it. I always look at countries like Germany, right? Germany is like so together. They invent the coolest things.
I lived there for a year. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, right. It's unbelievable. They're impeccable. They had COVID there. I was like screaming, why haven't the Germans done something? I just wanted anybody to do anything. And nobody could do anything because, boom, it got out of our hands and it got out of control.
Yeah. With this pandemic and everything in chaos, you've kept yourself busy and you've kept yourself positive for the most part.
Absolutely.
What is something new that you think that you've created, or like, because I know a lot of filmmakers that this time has really helped their craft bloom, thinking outside the box, challenging themselves in areas they never thought they would go, or picking up new creative endeavors. What during this time have you done that really,
all of the above?
yourself?
All of the above. Everything was taken away from me, so I had no choice. Okay, live stream. I didn't know squat about live stream. I've taken that StreamYard course. I've taken it, I think, 4 times already. It still hasn't sunk in, but my creative mind started to flow, and the reason it started to flow, Charles, is I created these shows because they were taking things away from me. Again, I've been doing this for 45 years, never had another job. And then all of a sudden, the people I worked for, all of my contacts, everything, I watched everything go out the window. So now I'm starting with a clean slate. Sometimes it's kind of like, I'll compare it. And I'm glad you brought me down this road, Charles, because I go on tangents. I will compare this to AA. Okay. They say people have to hit rock bottom, right, to make changes and do their lives and fix their lives and create a wonderful life. That is exactly what I had to do with this. I came up, Pandemic Cooking was a tape show. It still had to be edited. All right. And I had no idea that this character that came out of Pandemic Cooking, I had no idea what I was going to do. I just kind of thought, okay, you can make any kind of theme that you want with this. One of my pandemic cookings is a flight attendant called Pandemic Pam, and she'll take you on pandemic airways to anywhere you want to go in the world, because we're all going there virtually these days. And those segments were really funny. Sometimes she took you to India, where my character from India had all those costumes from when I was in India. Now I can do them in front of the camera. So it allowed me to be a completely free creative spirit. If I could think of it, I could do it. And there was nobody telling me what I could or couldn't do. I'll tell you, I've been running my own shows for a year now, and don't try and tell me. I've got great PR people, and they can suggest things, but probably a year ago I would listen to things that people told me. Don't even try and tell me now. I will consider what you say, and if it makes sense to me, I'll go along with it. But now I don't question me. That's the one thing I learned from all of this, that I make the right decisions for me, and every creative person needs to learn to listen to their inner heart, to their inner voice. So many of us were ruled by agents and managers, and even, what film festivals are looking for. Get out there, do the work. Okay. Do work that satisfies you. Okay. So that when you finish with that product, you feel amazing about it. But the film about the gorillas and chimpanzees, Whispers and Witnesses. Why the hell did I haul off to Cameroon based on 2 women I heard speak at the Explorers Club? Because I thought their story was extraordinary and no one else was going to do it. All right. So I figured out how to do it on a shoestring budget. All right. And there was nothing that was going to stop me. And it's the same thing for me right now. I can't get out there quick enough. I am chomping at the bit, and the opportunities will be there. But don't anybody try and hold me back, hold me down, or tell me that this is the way it's done.
I don't think they
inspiring. It's so inspiring. What you're saying is so inspiring, because myself included, and I know Stefan, we a lot of times we don't listen to our inner heart, and we make choices based on convenience, and we make choices that seem easier because that's what others tell us.
Advice, yeah.
And a lot of times you'll be happier even if you fail doing it yourself. I'd rather fail at something that I wanted to do than, not fail, be successful at something I never wanted to do.
Exactly. And this year has also, for me, I'll be honest, like I struggle with depression a lot. So this year has been an incredibly challenging year.
I can imagine.
And especially since I live by myself. So it's like I've had a lot of time to think and to go crazy and come back to sanity and everything else. Not go crazy, but and it's really teaching me a lot about different patterns in my life, believe it or not. Like I'm starting to
for the first time, you're able to see patterns.
Exactly, because I'm starting to realize I'm like, there are certain things that I do on a day-to-day basis over and over and over, and it's like they're irrational, like dumb things like procrastinating, whatever. But there's a reason behind it. And going through this has forced me to confront that. And I'm still getting there, but it's been a growth process. And then in addition to that, having like this, and then I'm going to be working on another show as well, is I'm excited to meet new people every week. I'm excited to do this because I see how much of an impact these kind of shows have for people who have been in the industry for a long time. Like you see like movie stars, you see comedians, like comedy has literally saved my ass this year. Like if it weren't for comedy, I would not be mentally stable. Like I listen to like hours a day of stand-up comedy. I'll start listening to the ones that I've already listened to just so I can laugh.
I like this. Right. But you know what? None of that would have happened if this pandemic didn't happen. And you're going to come out the other side of this. You will be a changed person because of it. I'm not going to tell you your depression will go away, but you will learn how to use that depression. All right. Right. Get stronger. And it's a part of you. I'm going to say something. It's okay to be depressed.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. It's something that I've dealt with throughout my life. And
it's okay. I'm tired of people sugarcoating things.
Yeah, but this year it's been an opportunity as well as a detriment,
right?
In a lot of ways, and like there's been a lot of setbacks and a lot of little wins, and you just got to keep focusing on the little wins because one or two big setbacks can throw you off course, and if you can focus on that 1% every day or that one little bit of improvement, like you did something right.
Right.
And like something I'm going to start doing again, and I used to do, and I looked at it recently, is I have a jar, and I got it from a mastermind group or from a book or something like that. But basically you have a jar of all the things that you accomplish in a day. You write it on a Post-it note, you stick it in the jar, you fill it up that way. When you're not feeling so good, you go back and you look at all the stuff that you've done. And I stopped doing that. And I was cleaning the other day. I'm like, yeah, I should probably do that again because it does help.
So Wendy.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
By the way, I did the jar thing also. Someone else turned me on to the jar thing. So that is a really cool thing to do. And I was also going to suggest something that really helped me a lot. I did it's free and it's on YouTube, the 21-day meditation with Deepak Chopra, visualizing. And it is unbelievable because I too, got in, and it's even now, there are mornings I wake up now and I'm like, oh God, I'm going into year 2, pardon my French, in this shit show. It's year 2. All right. But I have to shake that off because I've got to be able to propel myself forward every single day. Yes, Charles, you were going to ask me something.
Yeah. It was one of the things I read about you and I saw on your website, and I find it to be really interesting. This past year, I published my own memoir. I know it was one of the most challenging experiences of my life, trying to get some of your internal thought. How was She's the Last Model Standing for you as far as writing that, getting that out there?
Well, that's a really good question. So many people talk about the book when I'm on shows. No one asked me how it happened. I had someone who used to be a producer, for a famous show who was living with me. And she was always coming up with ideas. I would say she was always trying to sweeten the deal of living with me rent free. So she would dangle stuff in front of my face. And she said to me, you should have a book. I'm like, great. Where do I start? How do I? She said, well, we need to get a proposal together. So I started telling her one of the most obvious places to start, right, was I was one of the original Studio 54 people, because there's lots of stories connected with that. I didn't start with when I was born or whatever. We started with that. So we put this proposal together, and it had like 5 chapters to it. And when we were finished with it, she was kind of done with me. And I'm like, well, what do we do next? She said, well, we'll send out query letters and see what happens. Well, nothing happened. Because what I will tell most people trying to get a book published, nothing will happen. And she said, you don't really have a book anyway. So I'm like, okay. She and I had a huge falling out. And that quasi book, that proposal sat on my table. And one day I was talking to a really great friend of mine who's had a bunch of books published. Do you all know who Sybil was? She was the person with 16 separate personalities. There have been a lot of movies done on her. He happens to be a shrink, and he did 3 books on her, and he's a fascinating guy. And I told him, that I had started this book. I didn't do anything with it. We hadn't spoken for a while. And he said, well, why don't you bring it over? Let me take a look at it. I dropped it off at his house. And he called me up a week later and he said, Wendy, I have an agent. I want you to go talk to her. So I went to see his agent, and she was a well-known agent. She was like 100 years. So she was way up there. And I left the proposal off with her, and she called me up like a week later. And she said, I love your story, but you don't have a book. I'm like, okay. She says, I know an editor who for a very minimal amount of money will help you create a book. I'm like, what do I have to do? She said, you will tell him your story, and he will tell your story back to you in your own words. In other words, Charles, he organized a timeline for me from when I was a kid, all the things that affected me then, all those great stories, to living in Nigeria when they overthrew the government, those great stories, to coming to New York to model. I had no idea. That's the hardest thing with a memoir. How do you organize this timeline? Well, you know what? Somebody else can organize it better for you if they're a good listener and they're a person that does that. This guy was in Palm Springs, and this is what he does for people that write. And it would be 6 o'clock in the morning, his time, 9 o'clock in the morning, my time. And we would work for an hour and a half to 2 hours, 3 times a week. All right. And I didn't only do that. He would ask me all kinds of questions to get my memory going, because so much has happened in my life. There were key things that it wasn't that they were buried, I forgot. And then the other thing that helped me write the memoir, I have over 200 photo albums, and I had to haul those babies out of the closet and go down memory lane looking at those pictures. And that was hard. Because remember, I went through the whole AIDS epidemic. A lot of the people that came to New York with me in the late 70s were no longer even alive. So it brought up a lot of things for me. And he would write down everything I said and then put it in a very concrete format and email it back to me. And I would read it, and it had to be in my words. And we got into arguments over he said some of my thoughts weren't clear. And I said, but that's how I speak, and that's how I want this book written. I'm a run-on sentence. I know that. Don't put a freaking punctuation mark. Just, it's my stream of consciousness. And that's how I did it. So that was my whole process. And David Wallace, if you look at the cover of my book, it says, with David Wallace. I mean, he brought the book to life. And if I had it to do over again, I would definitely hire some, especially with when you're telling your own story. It's so much easier to have someone else really tell your story back to you. You can talk to them and they can put it in a tape recorder, but they organize all of it, because we have so much up here. Didn't you find that, Charles? That's the hardest thing
right now.
I think like what it was, I didn't get the chance to have, like, I had an editor, of course, but I didn't have anyone I was working with during the process. So I had a lot of self-doubt of what I wanted to reveal. And, when you're doing a memoir, autobiography, whatever you're doing, you're going so deep and so personal there comes a time where when it's out there forever. So do you want to do this? So there was many times when I was writing, I would stop. And
I would get a call from you sometimes.
It would sit for a while, and I wouldn't touch it. I just didn't know it. I was like, people can't know this. And then it's funny because that was the biggest fear. Is I'm wondering if you had the same type of thing. Is like, once the book is said and done, and you have your little masterpiece in your hand, a little piece of your life, did you have that moment where you're like, should I release this?
I honestly never felt that way. Any of the stuff in the book that would have shown badly on people, remember, I'm a comedian. I cloaked it in comedy. Whether it was my so it just became another funny Wendy story. You know, I like, if someone treated me badly, I was always able in my real life to turn the tables and make them look silly. And I did that in the book. And I can honestly say, if you know how to read between the lines, you'll see who I trash. But most people, they will never get that. And they just, oh my God, it was so funny. You had me laughing the whole way through, which was what that was my goal with the book right along, so.
Bring a smile.
Yeah. To bring a smile to people's faces. It's who I am in real life. So.
Now I have another question on a totally different topic. I'm reading your biography. You've been to some pretty amazing places and done some pretty interesting stuff. Would you mind talking a little bit about some of your travels?
Yeah. So my book ironically opens up in Nigeria. And again, that was this editor's choice to do that. Charles and Stefan, I would have never come up with that myself, honestly. Like, why would you open it up, in the middle? Don't all biographies start in the beginning. He opened it up in Nigeria, which was really, really smart. Nigeria really ended up defining me. I don't know. I will never understand why I went there to study about traditional religion, which is basically African deities like Shango, the god of thunder, and how people become possessed by their belief in these deities, and how people can heal themselves from certain things by belief. It has always fascinated me, the mind versus science. We don't know. We know such a fraction of what goes on up here. So I knew from the get-go, from the time I was 5 years old, I knew I was going to go to Africa. And I achieved that at 21. And I was privy to a lot of traditional healings, traditional medicines, and traditional beliefs. And that really opened up a portal for me, because anywhere I went in Nigeria, I mean, you guys see how I look. I look that way over there. And I was so different to everybody that they just wanted to be my friend, take me into their homes. And one of my best friends there that I met at the university, Jide Abegunde, his grandfather was a traditional doctor. What we would call, I hate this word, witch doctor, but I'm using it here. But he was a traditional doctor. And because of Jide, I had privy to see things that most people will never see. So it opened up a portal in my brain. And I kept thinking after that, I got to get back to Africa. I got to get back to Africa. There were so many things there that I connected to. And I can tell both of you, I have no idea why. And before I got to Africa, we took a trip to Costa Rica. We kept putting Africa off. Our daughter was young and we didn't know what we were going to do there anyway. We weren't making films then. So we went to Costa Rica with our daughter. And, Costa Rica is a cool place. Lots of people go there on vacation. But of course, I meet a traditional healer in Costa Rica in Corcovado National Park in the jungle. And his name was Augusto. And these things have, you're asking me how I end up in these places. This is how I'm supposed to be there. And we got there, and my husband, who was commercial photographer at the time, was shooting for a drug called Lamisil for foot fungus, right? Mm-hmm. And those drugs are not cool for people to take. I mean, but it was a client. He took the job, and the irony was he had a foot fungus. So we go off to Costa Rica. And this medicine man tells us he's planted a garden to fight cancer. And I'm like, okay, come on. I for whatever it was worth, there was all kinds of odd stuff growing there. What was interesting was the people from the corporation Eli Lilly were down there, and they were trying to talk to him, and he was not going to give any secrets away, but he liked us. He was attracted to us. We took walks through the rainforest with him, and this is something I will never forget. I walked through that rainforest myself. I never saw a thing. I walked through with him. There were eagles perched on trees, colorful birds coming out of monkeys. It was the weirdest thing, and he didn't call anything. So I've had these incredible kinds of spiritual things happen. All right, the last thing that happens with Augusto, we're about to say goodbye to him, and I said, I need to ask you something. Maybe you can help. My husband's had a foot fungus he's never been able to get rid of. Can you take a look at his foot? He looks at his foot, and he asked us where we were staying, and he said, I will come tomorrow morning at breakfast, and I will bring you some stuff, and it will get rid of it. And I thought, yeah, okay. How much is this going to cost me? $10. That's like $10 gamble. That's, I can afford that. Shows up at breakfast with a glass jar, which looked like cow poo in it, which, by the way, I think it was, with all this, right, cow poo it had fungus in it, and cow poo, and God only knows what else. And then he takes out some clear liquid. He numbs Alan's foot. He takes out a knife and cuts open his foot where the fungus is. This is true. And then he takes a lighter and heats up the cow poo. All right. Puts it on a poultice, puts it on his foot, and wraps his foot up. All right. See, I have no fear. And I'm like, you know what?
I've done poultices before, but that one's
right. This was like the poultice from hell. And you're thinking, okay, and I looked at him. I said, Augusto, I said, what do I do next? He said, well, tomorrow morning you just take it off. He sleeps overnight with it. I said, and then what do I do? And he said, well, you don't have to do anything because the fungus will be gone. And I'm like, okay. So we wake up the next day and we take the disgusting thing off of his foot. Alan's still got the fungus on his foot. We, put his socks on, go back to the United States like 2 days later. About 3 weeks later, he was going to go see his doctor. And I said to him, I said, maybe he can prescribe something for your foot. And he said, I meant to tell you. He said, the toenail fell off and there's a new toenail growing in and there's no fungus. And there was never a fungus again. True story. So you ask, why do I go to remote places? Now doing film, this is how you can tell. I want to tell these stories. These are stories I'm seeing with my own eyes. If two women are rescuing chimpanzees from poachers, all right, one is an American woman, Dr. Sherry Speed, the other is a British woman, Rachel Hogan. These women have devoted their entire lives to basically living in the bush, all right, and creating these rescue sanctuaries because they believe keeping gorillas and chimpanzees is that important. And they believe that giving this to the people that are from Cameroon who are now working for them, they're employed by them, their kids are getting education. Remember, I am my brother's keeper. I started this out by saying that. They believe that too. That's how you do it. All right. You're not going to go shooting gorillas and chimpanzees when you realize they are a part of your culture and they need to live too. All right. You're going to grow different kinds of food as opposed to killing a gorilla for bushmeat. All right. And your kids are going to get educated. They're going to know they don't want to do that because that's the legacy of the people that live there. That both those women did not come in and take over and try and tell the people how to do their culture. That is something I really so dislike that people do. Americans were really known for that. And so are other. Well, you know what Europeans are too. We go to remote places and we try and tell people how to do their culture. That is so wrong. We need to tell people how to be able to survive, how to be prosperous. They're fighting disease, how to, what can we share? What knowledge can we share? And what can we learn from them? These trips have totally changed my life. And you asked me what makes me do it, because there's stories to be told out there that I love to be able to sit and open up people's minds to these things when they say, I had no idea. The film we made before this, Fragile Beauty, was about tribal people that were in the Southern Omo Valley in Ethiopia. People saw my footage and they're like, oh, they put those costumes on for you? This made me insane. No, they did not. They're living like this. They don't even have money. They trade cows. They body paint every single day of their lives. If they kill an animal, they use use the skins, they use the horns of a ram, and they make beautiful, beautiful things to wear. And that's how they do their life. And I wanted very much to be able to tell their story. And that
I'm
film,
with you on that 100%.
right,
I
and
love
they
that
are
stuff.
right now being crushed by the Ethiopian government that just wants their land, their ancestral land, the land where their fathers and mothers and grandfathers and great grandfathers have been buried for hundreds of years. That is disappearing. So, as documentary filmmakers, we owe it to our audience to get out there, tell those stories. All right, because you know what, they're going to disappear, and we're not going to be able to tell them. And you asked what I have planned going forward. You know, the Explorers Club has been shut down for a year. We've had great lectures online, but nobody's doing expeditions unless they were already in that place. I'm hoping to be able to get out in the field again and make more films. That's what I want to do.
That's amazing. It's actually one of the last.
Contact, actually,
That was actually one of my final notes is to ask what was next. So it was actually read my mind.
I have a next. We had started. I'm very intuitive. Before this pandemic happened, and Whispers and Witnesses has been going around and around to so many different festivals and being seen. I said to Alan, why don't we do a film here? I wanted to do a film about working dogs and therapy dogs. I want to raise them up so that people know that they're not just dogs. I mean, my God, you look at 9/11, those dogs played such an important part 9/11, but yet all you ever read in the paper was, you know, a dog, he was honored, Rocky was honored for, you know, everything he did during 9/11 and how he, you know, kept his partner safe. Let's make it bigger than that. Okay. Let's get into the relationship between the canine officer and their dog, who is their partner, and what it's like for them to go looking for a lost person in the woods that has Alzheimer's, and what it means to that family. These dogs are doing incredible work. The therapy dogs that children that are having a hard time to read, they can read to a dog because the dog isn't going to laugh at them. The dogs that are trained for this will just sit there and listen. Jonathan Fox, who I'm sure you guys know, Jonathan Charles Fox, I love him to death, and his dog Dharma. He's in my film. Why is he there? Because Jonathan has epilepsy. And Dharma was trained, and this is still, I still don't understand. There's dogs that are trained, they have like almost a sixth sense for smell. And Jonathan's brain will let off a chemical that will tell Dharma, oh my God, he needs to take his medication now. He's having a seizure. Come on. So that film is filled with these stories. But more than that, we were thinking we were done, and the pandemic hits. And I'm telling you, nobody's been right in the head. And in New York, all of a sudden I go to Central Park. It was this time last year, and I see so many people have rescue dogs, puppy dogs. You start talking to them. The dog is brand new. Where'd you get this dog? Why'd you get the dog? Oh, I needed to get the dog. Okay. This was a huge epiphany, because all of a sudden people are realizing what happened with the pandemic is really screwed up. I need something to balance my emotions, something that I can love that will love me back. Manhattan is so filled with dogs right now. It is ridiculous. We've never
killed for one. I wish I could have one.
They are so incredible that the work they do. And prior to this time, you know, all the people that I have in the film, I have people with PTSD. I have people with medical conditions. I have people physically challenged. I never had your regular run-of-the-mill person, you know, that was just like living their lives. And all of a sudden they are emotionally shattered. They're shattered. All right. And yeah, a lot of them still had their job. They were able to work at home. All right. But this blew people 6 ways to Sunday. You can't minimize what it did. Now they have this dog and the love. Okay. And the companionship and the non-judgment. You know, we started out talking about what can you trust? Who can you trust? You know what? You can trust your dog. I can trust my dog. That dog loves me no matter what. I am the focus of his entire day. And isn't that great? It really changes the perspective on how you see your life.
That's amazing. Awesome. So thank you, Wendy, so much. I just wanted you to, can you let our audience know where they can find and look you up after this episode?
Yes. And I also I always do this on every show that I'm on. Cheese. Cool. By the way, I don't even know the name of the show. What is the name?
This is the Thursday Exchange.
I love this. Okay. Well, can you email and text me that, please? Because I want to put up a whole thing. But okay, all of my handles. Please visit my YouTube channel, Wendy Stuart TV, where you can find Pandemic Cooking, 109 episodes. If These Walls Could Talk, that's my entertainment show. You all will love a lot of the rockers I have on there. And then, of course, there's Triversity Talk, which was going to be changed to Diversity Talk because we want a bigger platform for it. And that basically, we talk about LGBTQ issues in the world. So that's all on my YouTube channel, Wendy Stuart TV. My book, She's the Last Model Standing, is on Amazon. Let's see what else. Instagram, She's the Last Model Standing. What else have we got here? God, I hate Twitter. I'll give it to you. I do. I hate it, and I'm using it not a lot, but I hate it. She's the Last Model Standing on Twitter. And Facebook, Wendy Stuart on Facebook, and visual journeys are stories is where you can read about our films on Facebook. And yeah, that's, oh my God, that's enough. So many handles, so little time.
Wowzers.
Awesome.
But it was an awesome episode, Wendy. I'm so
Thank
thankful that you came on. And we'll definitely have you on again, hopefully.
Yeah. I love to talk. Good night, everybody.
And we'll definitely be in touch because I want to pick your brain a little bit.
Have a great night.
Okay. Good night.
Right. Thank you guys for watching this episode of the Thursday Exchange. It was an awesome episode with Wendy Stuart. Very insightful, very passionate woman.
Wish I had her energy, man.
Yes, it was amazing. So this week, you guys, we're still running on the deadline for the Catskill International Film Festival. Putting a little plug in there. Please, if you guys know somebody interested in being a part of our festival, submitting, do so now. If they need a waiver of any sort, tell them to reach out to us at catskillfilmfest@gmail.com. We will gratefully give them a waiver. We don't want to turn anyone away during this pandemic for not being able to pay for a waiver fee. This year, as I've been saying every week, we're getting really incredible films from all over the world, spanning a majority of our continents. And I'm so excited for next month for our next virtual event.
And if anybody has need of a photographer, give me a call. Sorry.
All right, everybody. Love y'all.
Later. Bye.